Quick video on hearts and the two pathological states that hearts can be in, which is too open or too closed. So the heart is like our subjective center of consciousness. It's our subjective emotional center, which is a counterpart to our brain, which is our logical objective center. And when a person's heart is too open, it's kind of like an attempt to escape the objective world because maybe there's things that are too intimidating or too scary to face. But by yanking open your heart, it's kind of squirts pink juice over everything so that everything seems more magical, more romantic, more idealized. You feel more joy, you feel more love. It becomes really easy to fall in love. Your imagination opens up, and at the extreme end, imagination and reality kind of start to blur. So it becomes a psychosis if it goes to an extreme. But there's some good sides to it. But one of the downsides is that you can basically be madly in love with a person you barely know. You can be madly in love with someone who treats you horribly. I mean, like about half of my friends are in this situation. Because your heart isn't discriminating. It's too open and it's just squirting love out over everything. And the other pathological heart condition is having a heart that's too closed. And when your heart is too closed, you're going to find fault with anyone who gets too close because your heart's just doing that as a protective mechanism. You know, it's like you might have a really nice girlfriend, but suddenly it'd be like, oh my God, her elbows, they look like lemons, or I don't know. You'll tend to be really critical of the world in general to keep it at arm's length, especially when people get closer to you where you start to feel threatened. Then your heart will slam close by starting to see them in a really negative light, and you might even feel repulsed by them. But having a closed heart is good for some things because it makes you hard. It makes you able to make hard decisions. Like imagine working in a slaughterhouse. You have to have your heart be closed, or being a soldier, or being a prison guard. There's lots of things in life where you really need your heart. You have to kind of shut down your emotions in order to deal with it. Just like there's other things like maybe being an artist where you have to kind of open up your heart in order to do it. So having an open heart or a closed heart can be good. But the thing is, like, okay, and people with closed hearts, so all the energy is basically pushed up into the brains, and so they'll tend to be like a lot more judgmental of life because they're just like evaluating things with the brain rather than seeing it through the heart. And that will cause them to be more judgmental of themselves, and then they'll have like a lot of shame, and they'll respond to that shame by trying to be even more critical of other people to make them feel better about themselves. And so when you have a closed heart, you get into a state where you're really depressed, cold, unhappy. Life doesn't feel like it really has any meaning or magic. You can't really have relationships or love people. So that's like a pretty unhappy state to be in. But at the same time, you will likely be pretty decent at survival because you're good at seeing threats. You're good at evaluating things objectively. Unlike the person whose heart is too open, they're no longer able to evaluate things objectively or correctly interpret threats. And so their ability to survive goes down. And then also a heart can go from one state to another. Like when I was a teenager, I became really obsessed with random people that I didn't know, like absolutely obsessed. Like I'd think about them 24 hours a day. But then one day they would actually approach me or something like that. And they would get close enough where I could see their pores, I could see a zit, and then bam, I'd be instantly repulsed. The whole thing, it would be all over in that exact second. I would just be disgusted by them. Because, they were serving a function for me, an ability to escape my own situation. But I wasn't in a position to actually have a relationship with them. So as soon as they got too close, that was threatening. And so I instantly closed my heart, which caused me to see them as being disgusting. Because when your heart is closed, other people are disgusting. They don't live up to your standards. There's like all these things wrong with them. They're irresponsible. They're to blame for all the bad things that happen to them. You're just seeing them through a really negative light. So I think the key thing, though, is to recognize the way that your heart being open or closed causes perceptual distortions so that then you can like consciously choose to rein in to rein in those perceptions so that you don't have to be controlled by your heart being too open or too closed. For example, if you are the sort of person who falls in love with guys who are really bad to you, then you would want the ability to turn off the love towards them. And if you're the sort of person who finds fault with anyone who gets too close to you, then you would want the ability to stop doing that so you could actually have a relationship. And how can you do that? Well, I think the first thing is just recognizing that what you perceive in another person is influenced by the state that your heart is in, and the state that you're holding your heart is related to trying to protect yourself in some form. So if you're seeing someone as super desirable or you're seeing someone as super undesirable, that probably has a lot to do with what's going on in you and what you are trying to accomplish. And so just understanding that perceptions are distorted by our emotional needs is, I think, the first step to gaining control over it. Secondly, if you're the sort of person who sees people in too positive a light, you would want to practice being able to dwell a little bit on their bad sides, because when your heart's in that state, it'll probably cause you pain to really think about the bad things they do. Your mind will just want to move on from it. So you would just want to practice kind of like dwelling a little bit on their bad qualities, like the fact that they murdered people, the fact that, they did all these mean things or whatever. Just like try to just sit with that and see how it makes you feel. And likewise, if your heart's too closed, you want to try to see if you can think a little bit positive thoughts about people. Like, is it possible that they had a good intention? Is it possible that they have some positive qualities that you might actually admire? And if you force yourself to kind of see them in a positive light and deal with the discomfort that causes, then it will kind of give your heart the ability to open up a little. In addition, if your heart is too closed and you practice giving to people, that will force your heart open. And likewise, if your heart is too open and you practice withholding from people, that will help. Like, you don't have to respond just because somebody sends you a message. You could receive a gift and not say thank you or whatever. You could just like practice being a little cold and deal with the discomfort that it causes. But I'm sure you can come up with lots of ways to deal with this yourself. But anyway, this was just a quick video on what it means for your heart to be too closed versus too open. And I'm Julie Neckley. Thank you.